Hello. Welcome. I'm here with my good friend Bella. She's currently a high school student that will be graduating as valedictorian of her class this summer and will be studying game design and development at Rochester Institute of Technology in the months to come.
Hello.
Alrighty, let's get started. So, Bella, I understand you've participated in the role playing community since a very young age. Can I ask
Yes.
what drew you to that community and how you got started?
So I think the biggest appeal for me was the idea of having this easy access to just being whoever you want
Mhm.
and being able to explore like different stories and different like characters through other people and
Mhm.
having that like almost realistic interaction while just also being completely someone else with like a different story. I feel like it was a nice break from reality,
Yeah.
especially with how like I grew up.
True. What was one of the first things you played? Like how did you like what was the one of the first things you did
I feel
as
like
role playing?
ugh. It was like Club Penguin.
Club Penguin territory. Love it.
I did it in Club Penguin. I'd like have many different outfits and like, one of the thing I remember the most doing is, like, going to the little pizza shop and,
Oh,
like,
true.
role playing as one of the waiters and just,
Mhm.
like, taking people's orders, and I would even, like, role play as guys as well because it was
Mhm.
just so easy to get different outfits and stuff.
Mhm.
So it'd be, like, talking with other girls and stuff. It was a lot of fun. It
Yeah.
was just random, like, little kid stuff, really.
Yeah. Were you afraid of getting started? Was it like were you nervous at all?
Honestly, when I was younger, I think that, like, almost, um, not visage, but, like, naive, like, how naive you are when you're younger. I
Yeah.
didn't have any fear, but, like, as I got older and I got interested in different communities doing different role-playing aspects like Dungeons& and Dragons or, like, different, parts of online games that did role-playing, I feel like I have more anxiety because a lot of people are really good and very passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit intimidating sometimes, like stepping into someone else's like role playing territory and
Mhm. Mhm.
trying to adapt to how they do stuff, like the different terminology, like how to talk in character, how to talk out of character. It's
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah. I wish I role played when I was younger. I didn't the first time I role played was probably when like we first played D&D together when you were DMing. I think
Mhm.
that's the first time I actually role played. I mean, I did as a kid, but that's like playing
Yeah,
house or
yeah.
you know.
More like LARPing.
Yeah.
But, like, without the whole, like, idea of, like, "Oh my god, she's LARPing?"
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like
Exactly.
if you get into it at a young age, it's a lot easier to kind of have that confidence to be like, "I'm gonna go and try it out. I'm gonna go play D&D with some people," or,
Yeah, cuz
"I'm gonna
as you're a kid,
go."
you don't care.
Yeah, but I feel like you with your, cosplaying, that might also help with that kinda stuff. Because I wish I could cosplay. Really, I'd love to dress up and go and just, like, be able to be a different person. Like, when I
Mhm.
went to the Renaissance Festival and I dressed up as, like, a cute elf, it was amazing. I felt, like, so happy just walking around seeing everyone else. Some people were doing accents and everything, it was so cool.
Imagine going to a D&D session in cosplay, yeah, as your characters.
No, that'd be so
That
cool.
would that would be
That'd be
so much
so
fun.
cool. I love
Okay.
that.
So, you're experienced, I understand, in RP in Final Fantasy 14 online as well as Dungeons and Dragons. Can you talk about your experience through either platform and how they differ?
Yeah. So, I feel as though I'm way more knowledgeable on Dungeons& and Dragons just because I've been playing that since, like, oh, 7th or 8th grade, and
Mhm.
I've, like, switched from being the player and DMing, And Final Fantasy, it's like a little bit more intimidating. So I've kind of like barely put my feet in the water. Like I've done it with random people. I've done it with friends.
Mhm.
I mean, we went to like a little cafe. We did a little bit of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more to it. But the biggest, I mean, biggest like difference is one way. It's like you're kind of depending on how you play Dungeons and Dragons, it's like face to face, and it's like you have more of a relationship with the people you're role playing as.
Right.
Like, I feel a tendency to kind of not really do what my character would want to do, just because, like, I'm friends with that person. Like, we were playing through one of our campaigns, and we had some family friends hop in for a bit, and they were like the bad guys,
Mhm.
and they ended up backstabbing us. And it was crazy because it's like the main villains were like, "We'll help you out. We'll get you out of here. We'll get you what you need if
Mhm.
you get rid of one of your party members' powers and
Oh
kill them."
my god.
So we were just like sitting there, and I'm just like, "Oh my god," out of character, like, "Holy, like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen?"
Mhm.
So, and then the 2 players were sitting there with such, like, disbelief, because it's like they know these people, like, you can see
Mhm.
them, like, across the table, like, you can see that they're distraught and that, like, if you do this, they'll be upset, but, like, their characters would. That's
Yeah.
what their characters would do. So they went through with it, and the guy lost his powers, he looked like he was actually gonna cry. And I mean, I've
Mhm.
I've been there, I've cried playing D&D before. That just shows how invested I am in it. And,
Mhm.
they felt bad, so then they ended up doing something else, and then by the end of it, like, in the game, our characters were just like, "We can't trust you, you guys have to leave." So we left, like, we went our separate ways in, like, almost the center of the earth. Like, we were deep underground. And it was crazy. I mean, we felt our characters, felt upset, but
Yeah.
we as players were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they did that to us."
And so as they were playing the villains, did they come up with that like on the spot? Was that improv or was that written out somewhere that they would do that? Was that planned?
So it was based on they actually weren't even supposed to be villains to begin with.
Oh,
So
okay.
what happened was their characters are basically relic hunters looking for ancient artifacts
Mhm.
to bring back to their home because their home was infested with a plague and basically turned them all undead. So they're just like zombies basically.
Oh, wow.
And in order for them to kind of bring their humanity back, it's like they have to take the time to go hunt down these ancient artifacts, like super powerful artifacts, and
Mhm.
they end up melting them and like taking their magic to like seal a hole to try to like prevent the disease and like to help their families.
Mhm.
So they're more so they're like because it was two of them, two of the players were relic hunters, and they kind of known each other since they came to this part of the world.
Yeah.
They've been like sticking together, and we've only known them for like 3 days in game.
Mhm.
So then, when faced with the choice, like, we can help you, like, if you help us, we'll help you type thing.
Yeah.
The character, she was like, well, my friend's with the group. She's like, I don't care about the other people, but I care about my friend. So she made a deal with them, and she's sitting there, like, she's obviously distraught.
Mhm.
And she's like, I know my character would instantly betray them. So she was kind of put on this, like, should I be a good person out of the game and, like,
Mhm.
kind of meta game or, like, retcon to try to make it better for us?
Yeah.
Or should I really embrace this character? Which is very different from Final Fantasy because Final Fantasy, it's like, you can talk to anyone. Like they literally have places like, clubs, cafes, even
Mhm.
like specific spots in the game itself, like the game world. You
Yeah.
can just go and walk up to someone and say, "Hey, my name's blah blah blah. What are you doing here? What brings you here?" and you can just have a conversation for like an hour or two, and then it's just like, oh, I gotta go back and study. Oh, I gotta go hone my magic. I gotta go practice my swordsmanship. And then you
Yeah.
just never talk to them again. So it's like it doesn't really have that emotional impact unless you talk to them for a while. That's the
But
biggest
again,
thing.
Final Fantasy isn't an open mic game. You can't even hear the other person.
And it's
It's all
like
typed out.
to really portray that emotion, it's like you gotta it's like typing. Yeah. It's like you gotta literally write out like, oh, Cecilia goes and like grabs your hand. Like you have to type that out
Mhm.
and try to use the most descriptive words you can just so you can portray those emotions to portray what your thought process is. While
Yeah.
D&D, it's like, it's less typing, it's more vocal, and you can hear the emotion behind someone's actions.
Like, it's better to be very deliberate with what you're saying and how you're saying it.
Very, very.
Mhm. Okay. So, I mean, you gave so that was an example for Dungeons and Dragons. Can you elaborate more on an example of Final Fantasy roleplay?
So for Final Fantasy roleplay, the biggest example I can give you is one time when I was in a guild, they had like RP nights, like Monday RP nights. And one of the players actually took one of their rooms in like our guild
Mhm.
and ended up building like a cute little um pub, had food, had many different areas you could role play in.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, well, here's a quick little like legend so you can see like what different things mean. Like in Final Fantasy, you can type a certain command and that'll like say your name does blah blah blah. Like if I wanted to say like I sat down, I would do slash me sits down and it
In
would
chat.
say yes in chat.
Mhm.
And it would literally say like Cecilia Vita sits down. And then you would type regularly to show that you're talking, and then parentheses. This was very new to me. This surprised me. It's actually really smart. Parentheses basically means you're talking out of character,
Right.
like to kind of explain what you're doing, which is really cool because I never
Mhm.
thought of that before. It was always for me it was always in character all the time, especially
Yeah.
for like those online games with multiple people. And some people will actually have in their like descriptions and stuff for their character, they'll have like certain things where it says like w slash u, which means or w/u/t, I believe that's what it is, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
basically walk up and talk or walk up slash tell, and it's like which is a way of like privately messaging someone in the game, and that's crazy. And like people have like so many different things to their name. Like some people have full blown descriptions
Mhm.
about their character and what kind of RP they do. Some people even make their own websites. Like
Yeah.
the depth someone will go on Final Fantasy for their character, I feel like is a lot greater and more complex than D&D's characters because you can fall in love with your D&D character and kind of prioritize that character, but like the level of attentiveness and detail between the 2, especially for Final Fantasy, like, Final Fantasy people go crazy.
And
Like, some
honestly,
people
I think it's
have
amazing.
it's very respectable, like, the
Mhm.
details, like, some of them have their own, like, Twitter accounts just made for their character, and they only talk as their character, it's crazy, it's very respectable.
Like, you remember one of my Final Fantasy friends, Velma Nair. You remember looking at her card once or
Mhm.
twice. You didn't did you see the whole thing?
Yes, I think I saw the whole thing
Did you
we
read
were talking one
everything?
time. I did not, but I saw a lot of the text. But it's just like
She had so much lore. Like
mhm.
she had written pages and pages of lore just on her character. And it was like she had written stories for like her first impression, like surface level information on her character, but then there were like plot twists that went into who her character is and why she is the way that she is. And I think it's amazing how much
No, it
detail
really is.
actually goes into these characters.
Like, honestly, any type of role playing really does help you develop writing skills, communication skills. It's
Mhm.
insane. Like, it truly is. Like, the amount of detail and time people will go into this hobby
Yeah.
really does show in many ways than one. It's crazy, it really is. I do wanna get more into, Final Fantasy role playing. Like, I was thinking about making, like, a character just to throw on Belmont and just role play.
Mhm.
I really do.
I feel you.
Mhm.
Okay. So, next question. What
Mhm.
kinds of things have you learned by role playing in various communities and games? How would you say you've improved, if at all, as a writer since beginning to role play?
Oh, I feel like I have improved greatly with my social skills and especially in my writing.
Mhm.
So, when playing, D&D because recently it's been, like, a lot of these like, a lot of technology that helps you,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, you can, write like, type it in a Google document, or there's, like, D&D Beyond, which helps you keep track of everything for your character. When I played back in, like, 7th or 8th grade, it was like everything was pen and paper.
Mhm.
You had to write everything down. So I learned a lot of new words that I didn't know,
Yeah.
and I had to perfect my writing because the DM I play with like a lot,
Mhm.
um he has it where if you write down the notes and they are accurate enough, you are rewarded with experience.
Really?
Yes, that's why I have my whole
Ooh.
binder. That's why I have my whole binder with every single campaign I play and, like, every single session, because I never broke that habit. Because it was always like, "Oh, I gotta start writing, I gotta get the key details." Of course, it's a little more sloppy than it used to be,
Mhm.
but it still has, like, good writing elements. It depends if it's like, we're still playing at like 1 in the morning versus like the big plot, the big like climax is like at 5 p.m. Because I'll play for like 8 to 10 hours.
But so you take notes every single game?
Yep, I take notes every single game. If you want pictures, I can send them to you if you want to
Ooh.
include it, because I do actually have notes and stuff. Um, but it really did help my writing skills. It helped me kind of be able because I grew up learning 2 languages at the same time.
Mhm.
I learned, Spanish and English, like, around the same time.
Yeah.
So there's some words that I still have a hard time pronouncing and understanding,
Mhm.
but, like, truly playing D&D for at least, like, once or twice a week really has helped me open up my vocabulary and has helped me create, like, very detailed, sentences and paragraphs without using, like, the same repetitive words.
Mhm.
Like, I remember we got to write a, fictional short story my junior year for my honors English class, and I took one of the, um, Greek mythology stories, and I turned it into, like, a medieval fantasy type story, and I
Mhm.
used a lot of detail that as like, a DM would have said, like, to describe a scenario or something I would have wrote down to, like, truly grasp the situation, how severe it was,
Yeah.
and I ended up doing a really good job on that paper. He said he liked my attention to detail and liked the words I used. So if it then really, if I didn't, to spend the time, like, typing online and to, plan these different worlds and create these different scenarios for my players, I feel like I wouldn't have those skills to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, typing. It made me a faster typer. Like speaking, it has helped me because I do struggle with speaking a little,
Mhm.
and it has helped me like with acting because I do perform.
Mhm.
Like my musical fall play. It did help me with acting and honestly just being able to communicate with people and to understand a situation for when it's like, oh, like, should I say anything? Or like, oh, it's very tense in here. What do I do? It's kind of helped me with those things, being able to read a room and understand if I should like, let it be or to kind of intervene.
Yeah.
It really has given me a lot of skills that I use daily.
And you said you grew up using two languages or learning two languages.
Mhm.
Have you ever had a Spanish speaking character in
I have not because Spanish is I grew up with Spanish.
Mhm.
I lived in Costa Rica for a year when I was like 5 or 6.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was like I went from a Spanish speaking school to an English school, and I really didn't get into role playing until I was in like 2nd or 3rd grade. So it was more so like having those 2 languages. And on top of that, actually, I completely forgot I was learning Mandarin as well.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was a very preppy school, but it was like I really haven't, but I've tried role playing and like while speaking Spanish in the sense like typing it out and stuff. Have
Mhm.
tried it, but there is like a language barrier just because I'm not good at it as like, I used to be.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about integrating Spanish into role playing activities?
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah.
I think having those, especially creating characters and role playing as characters with like those different cultural aspects, whether it be like an accent or like
Mhm.
something they do, something they wear, I think is awesome because you're bringing awareness to different cultures as long as you do it respectfully
Yeah.
and truly understand the culture. I think it's great to do that stuff. I played Cyberpunk, like the not online, the role playing game,
Oh,
tabletop
okay.
game.
Yeah.
And one of my friends actually played as a Spanish character, and his name was Muerte.
Mhm.
And he would like speak in Spanish sometimes. Like he would have moments where when he get frustrated, he would use Spanish to show his frustration.
Mhm.
And he did a really good job, like, depicting and like kind of incorporating that stuff. And it added like an element to his character. So like I think, using accents, using different languages. Like I know my DM actually learns different languages, like will learn little bits of different languages so
Mhm.
that when he's like displaying a different language in the game, he can use those aspects to kind of show us like what it would really sound like, which is really really cool. It adds detail and kind of creates an atmosphere.
Yeah, that'd be something to think about for the future.
Mhm.
Okay, so now tell me about a time where you felt that role playing improved your writing skills, like when you were aware of it.
I think when I first started DMing and for like you guys,
Mhm.
I sat down and I was like, well, I have all these ideas. I have this idea I want to do, but I also have this one, and oh, I'd love if it worked with this one, or like this would work great with this character,
Mhm.
and kind of being able to have that process, and then being able to just like swiftly type it out in like full detail. Like when I DM, I will sometimes like open up like my notes and stuff, and I'll have parentheses like of just different ways to describe something.
Yeah.
And usually I'll read it word for word. So I feel as though like, all the time I spent writing on paper and like perfecting my writing skills so I can get that like extra experience or so others can read my notes and be like, "Oh wow, this is really interesting."
Mhm.
Being able to kind of write out these different scenarios and kind of writing down the lore of my world and everything. It's like that's when I really noticed I'm like, "Wow, I don't think I'd ever use this word, or I would have never used this word if it wasn't for D&D or like role playing online."
Yeah.
Or like even writing out like different dialogue usually when I'm typing to others in game, that kind of role playing it's like being able to use the grammatical like not grammatical, but when you're talking or like you're typing out dialogue. It's like you're supposed to use commas and stuff. I feel like
Yeah, yeah.
if it wasn't for doing that stuff online, I honestly think I wouldn't be able to really recognize that. And I noticed that with my classes, because my teacher would like put a quick paragraph up and say what's wrong with this, and
Mhm.
I'd be the one to raise my hand, and I'm like, oh, there's no like comma after that, there's a period instead, or they didn't split it up, they didn't start a new paragraph, it's text, it's like someone speaking, you have to split it up. And it was I noticed it more like 10th or 11th grade.
For sure. Okay. So now, how do you feel about the way role playing is portrayed by the media, and what do you think the reality is? And I want to elaborate on that because when I think of role playing in FF, I immediately think of Belmung and Uldal, right?
Yeah.
And when you think of um, Dungeons and Dragons portrayed by the media, I think one of the first things that comes to my mind is Stranger Things. Have you watched Stranger Things?
I've watched a little bit of it. I think I watched up to like season 2 or 3,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like it did gain some popularity through Stranger Things. Critical Role, definitely a big reason.
True.
And overall, I feel like media has just played a huge part in making making the game more accepting.
Yeah.
'Cause, back in the day, it was like, "Oh my god, you're playing Dungeons& and
Oh
Dragons,
my
and
god, you
you're"
nerd!
it was like the aspect of being a nerd, but it was also like, "Oh my god, he's worshiping the devil. Oh my
Oh my
god."
god.
Yeah, so it's like, I feel like it shed a light and kinda made it like, it's actually accepting,
Yeah.
which also in turn helped role playing become so popular.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause it's like, people are like, "Oh, I really like how you play D&D. I like how you act like this character. Maybe I'll see if I can do that in other games."
Yeah.
And it really has opened the light, like, opened the doors for it, which I think is awesome. I love, how people are kind of making it more accepting, like, you have people LARPing more, you have people
Mm-hmm.
dressing up, like, I feel like kind of having this light on role-playing games really benefits everything, because you have
Yeah.
people going to conventions like Renaissance festivals or like video game anime, like they have a giant tabletop convention that's just full of different tabletop games and like different dice and stuff. I think my friend and I are thinking about going.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest one in the country, and it's just like it shed this light for it, and I feel like it also kind of helped promote cosplaying as well, because
Yeah.
you see people online, like, dressing up as their D&D characters, or, like, you have those, YouTube and, TikTok and Instagram, like, videos of people doing, like, POV or, like,
Mm-hmm.
doing, like, lip syncing to a song or something. I mean, that's role playing, that really is role
Yeah.
playing, and it's like it's so cool that social media is helping promote this and making it more known. Cause
Mm-hmm.
like, if you told little Bella back in the day, like, who literally didn't even want my mom knowing I role played,
Mm-hmm.
like, I would hop on Minecraft server, like, creative servers at, like, 2 in the morning, and I'd be messaging people from, like, Australia role playing.
Yeah.
Like, if you told her that, like, "Hey, you're gonna find people who actually enjoy this, who actually think it's really cool and accepting," I
Mm-hmm.
would have never believed it.
Awesome.
So, it really has made it more, welcoming and,
Yeah.
um, open to, people who've never really done this stuff and people who enjoy doing it on a basis. It really has kind of helped. So I appreciate social media for that.
For sure. What about Final Fantasy?
Final Fantasy, I feel like the game itself, just how people, it's really how helpful the community is itself. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's like you have people who literally make posts and forms on how to role play, like how to get your characters to look a certain way to match like your depiction. You have artists like, you can commission to help draw and like envision your character.
Mhm.
The Final Fantasy community is definitely a great way to start role playing, I would say. It's
Mhm.
especially if you find the right group of people.
Yeah.
Um and avoid the right areas at least to start.
Are there,
Um mhm.
not guilds, free companies? Are there free companies that are just solely dedicated to role playing? I feel like there are, but are
Yes,
there?
100% yes.
That sounds
Cuz
like
I
so
mean,
much
you
fun.
you have guilds that are like hardcore or like casual. But
Mhm.
there are 100% guilds that are just focused on role playing and honestly might be a place where people role play consistently.
Yeah.
Like that could be like their home base, like something they would actually mention as their role playing in character, like, oh, I come from this free company and like it's like a tavern type thing. They might go into detail about it, some people they know.
Mhm.
And I mean, I really got into Final Fantasy role playing from my old free company. So it's like kind of having that ability to join those things and social media really like Twitter, you see people like on Twitter actually. Some people will post threads of literally dialogue like either it'll be pictures of like their characters doing something
Mhm.
with other characters and then like written response like written, in the text part, like actual chat where they will go in and take the time to edit the pictures they take and make it where their characters talking in the picture and they actually like, make their own stories that way.
Yeah.
It's crazy and these aren't like small little posts like that get 5 to 10 likes. These posts will get like 5,000 to 10,000, so it's reaching a wide variety of people.
Mhm. I've never seen
So,
those before, but send them to me. I'm
really? I'll have to
interested.
send them. Some of them are like kind of spicy. They're
Send,
good. They're
please.
interesting.
So, the next and final question.
Mhm.
When we think of early on role playing activities in children, we think of games like, playing pretend, playing house. How would you feel if schools took these early stages of play and leaned into it, encouraging students to explore their creative writing skills and drafting stories, creating characters for themselves, and really integrating those role-playing activities into their curriculum? Do you think it'd be beneficial to young students and further shape their writing skills?
100%. I think allowing kids to kind of have that freedom to really try different things and to kind of deep dive into them more
Mhm.
can really help create a more honestly welcoming and understanding society.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you'll have kids that will want to, like I want to be the dad in the family, or like I
Mhm.
want to, I want to like take care of the kid. When they play those games, it's like, and then you have like, you have the person who just wants to be the dog. It's like there's kids want to try different things for different reasons.
Mhm.
To get maybe like a different perspective. Maybe they want to do more. Maybe they want to try something different. I mean, I feel like if they included this and really emphasized it, I feel like we would have a more understanding society and maybe a generation of kids that kind of grow up and have this open mind.
Mhm.
And we will also have kids that, will have better writers, will
Yeah.
have better storytellers because they were allowed to kind of take the time to truly like write their own stories and to improve on it.
Mhm.
I truly think that it would help create a better society because like I look at some of the younger kids in my school and it's like how close-minded and so self-centered they are,
Mhm.
and it's like they really haven't improved as they've grown up. It's crazy
Yeah.
because like what happens when they become adults, you know what I mean? It's like we should be encouraging kids not to really break away from the mold, whether it be
Mhm.
like whether it be, what their parents tell them or what the school makes you do. I feel like allowing them to have this creative freedom, especially through role playing, kind of putting them in a different scenario, a different position,
Mhm.
can really help shape a person to be, you know, more accepting and more creative.
Yeah. I remember this was, like, when I was in the 2nd or 1st grade or something. I don't know. I was small. Um,
Mhm.
we were t our this was in school. Our class was tasked with writing, like, a little 4 Post-it card length story, right?
Mhm.
With big handwriting. And there were these group of older kids. They were like a grade or two above us. And after we wrote our story, we had to read our story to these older kids. And I
Mhm.
refused. I was like about to cry. I did not want to read my cringe story to this old kid that's probably going to judge me. That's what I was afraid of. I was so embarrassed and so afraid of just being judged by these older kids. And I can't even the story was like princess in a castle with a dragon type story.
Mhm.
Like it was probably good, but I've repressed that memory so much. I can't even remember what the story was about.
But I
But I was
and
so scared.
that's the thing. It's like you're being creative. Like you're kind of like writing down what you want to write, and then
Mhm.
it's like you're gonna present it to like older kids, and it's like they'll probably be more judgmental, and it's like you're kind of limiting the kid from really truly feel proud of their work, or like to have that courage to kind of tell them, because you're forcing that upon them.
Yeah.
Like I remember there was one assignment where it was like, I want you to, like, first grade, it was like, I want you to write a story about something that happened to you.
Mhm.
And I had a very creative mind when I was younger, I will say.
I believe it.
Um, I wrote about, because I used to live in a forest, and nearby was a, you'll like the story. Nearby was one of the Ivy Leagues, because I used to live near an Ivy League school in
Did you really?
New York. Yeah, I lived near Cornell.
Oh, okay.
And there was, like, an equestrian place nearby, and my sister actually used to ride there.
Love
Um,
that.
I just remember writing my story about, because my sister told me this story about how she was, riding and a horse got loose, and she went and, like, helped it bring it back. And
Mhm.
this was, of course, at the place. But my little kid mind went crazy. I wrote about how the horse came all the way to the forest,
Oh
and
my
my sister
goodness.
had no idea what to do, and she rode it all the way back, and the people were so happy, and she had a great time. And my teacher went up to my mom and was like, "This isn't this isn't what I asked for.
Oh, come on.
This isn't the assignment." And she turned and the kid and, like, the teacher turned to me and she's like, "Well, you need to write something that's real, something that's realistic." And you know how, like, devastated I was as a little kid? I was like, "Really?
I
That
believe it.
story was so good. Like,
Mhm.
what are you talking about?" So then I wrote, like, the most plain story. I wrote about getting my dog. Literally, it was like my mom, sister, and I went to Target. We bought dog supplies. The next day we got a dog. The end. And she preferred that over, like, my little kid mind kind of honing in on my creativity.
She talked down on you for being creative.
Yeah. And then, oh my gosh, I just something like skills wise, it just popped into my head.
Mhm.
Um, when I was younger, in first grade was probably like the most creative Bella.
Yeah.
um, Lots of like, playing house, whatever. But one time, because a lot of kids actually, I guess I had this kind of like comfort that kids would wanna, like, come play with me
Mhm.
and, like, be able to kinda do those, like, the weirder type games where it's like, "Oh, you play fairies or mermaids," like,
Yeah. Oh my
that's
god,
the kinda
mermaids.
that's the kinda games I was playing. That's the kinda games I was playing,
Mhm.
and I just remember, it was like we decided to do, like, a doggy daycare, and
Ooh.
everyone was the dogs. I
Oh
was the
my god.
owner. I was the caretaker. And my mom, like, will tell the story to everyone. it's like a little cringy, but it's really funny. Like during reading time, I would like tell all the kids to like because they all wanted to play this game. They'd sit in like a specific order I would tell them to.
Mhm.
And like they would want like, they acted like dogs, so I'd like pat their heads as story time was happening.
Mhm.
And it even got to a point where this one kid was sitting in my spot and I went up to them and I was like, my teacher told this to my mom. And I went up to kid and I was like, you know, if you move from that seat, you can come play with me at recess and we could play something cool. And I'd like went into detail about the type of game we were gonna play and they'd end up
Mhm.
getting up and moving. Like they got up and moved just because they had so much respect and they wanted to do it. And then my teacher, this was like during a parent teacher conference. She was like, Bella's a really good leader. Like
Mhm.
she's very she's very understanding and she's like she's a little bit manipulative, but that was just a little kid thing. But
No. You? No way.
but I think back to that moment and like that's something where role playing really helped me like build my self-esteem to kind of be
Yeah.
able to take on positions and lead people, whether it be like for their benefit or my own, but kind of being able to kind of put my foot down and kind of like stand proudly and be like, we need to do something else. We can't do that. Or like, hey, that's my seat. It's like if someone sits in your spot, it's like one person might just let it slide, but another person might be like, hey, I sit there. Is it okay if you move? I feel like it does help build self-confidence in a way.
I think that kind of brings to mind the idea of faking it till you make it.
Mhm.
Cause like, so obviously I have problems cleaning my room. But if I make a character that likes cleaning and I play that character, maybe, just maybe it'll get done.
No, I mean, truly, there might be some psychological, like, aspect to it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, when you go and watch a movie, and then it's like, "Oh my god, I love that character, I'm gonna start acting like that character."
Mhm.
It's like, you start doing what that character does, you start acting like them,
Yeah.
but then, once you grow out of it, you still keep those, like, little aspects.
You
You know what I
develop
mean?
habits, yeah.
Yeah, you develop those habits, you develop that personality, like, it really does help. It's interesting. It's very interesting. I wish they would do studies on role playing. Like, I feel like I see so many like beneficial things. It's not like video games where it's like, oh, it's so bad for you. Da 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 da.
Mhm.
All I really see is positive things about role playing.
Yeah, same.
Only negative is like, oh, it's weird. But that's okay. Like, if
It's
everyone was the
weird.
same, it's like if everyone was the same, it's like, we wouldn't be in this world full of like different activities and different creative things. So I think they
Exactly.
should really do a study on role playing and see how it's like impacted people.
For sure. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you for coming. Thank you
Mhm.
for being here. Thank you for
Of
letting me
course. Thank
interview
you.
you.
Thank you for letting me talk about my passion for D&D and role-playing games.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
love talking about it. I truly stand by the belief that people should be playing and doing it more.
100%. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps it up. Bye.
Bye.